a 7-day week? It's strange. It doesn't seem to make any sense. Why 7 days? It's not a nice round number. It doesn't end in 0. It's not a 10. You can't multiply or divide by it easily. A 7-day week doesn't seem to make any sense. A 7-day week is odd. So, at various times, people have thought, well, maybe we can tinker with the 7-day week a little bit and try to make it smoother, rounder. One prominent instance took place actually during the French Revolution, and the French revolutionary government mandated a 10-day week. Now, there were a couple of reasons for this. One was that by mandating a 10-day week, they skipped Sunday as a day off because the French Revolution was distinctively anti-Christian, and they wanted to stamp out Christianity in France. So part of the move to a 10-day work week was not to give people a day off to worship on Sunday. There was another consequence of the 10-day work week. People got sick. People collapsed from exhaustion. Productivity went down because people were too exhausted to do their work. The beasts of burden, the cattle, the horses, being used 10 days in a run instead of 7, they simply keeled over and died in massive numbers. And after several years of this experiment with a 10-day work week, France went back to a 7-day work week. Because you see, a 7-day work week, as strange as it seems, was kind of invented by God. We're told in Genesis that 6 days God did all of his work in creating the heavens and the earth. And on the 7th day, even God himself rested. God himself rested on the 7th day, on the Sabbath day, and set that 7th day, not the 10th day, the 7th day apart to be a day of rest, a day of recuperation, a day to come together and to gather with brothers and sisters in his name, to sing praise to him, to worship, to be strengthened, and to receive his gifts. God himself has set 7 days as the week, 6 to labor, and 1 to rest and worship. In 6 days, God accomplished all of his work of creation, and on the 7th day, if God rested, how much more do we need a rest? We need a break. God built the week of 7 days, and the 7th day is for rest. The 7th day is for healing. And so in our text for today, from Luke chapter 14, Jesus is at the house of a Pharisee on the Sabbath, on the day of rest. And along with Jesus at this house of the Pharisee, there was a man who had dropsy, a disease. And all the Pharisees were watching carefully. Will Jesus heal this man on the Sabbath? Because you see, here's the problem. Since God set aside the Sabbath to be a day of rest, the Jews have then developed more and more laws and traditions to say, if the Sabbath is the day God rested, you may not do any work. It prescribed the amount of steps you could take on the Sabbath. You couldn't lift a brick because that was work. You couldn't do any work on the Sabbath. Healing was considered to be work. And so, Jesus was at the house of a Pharisee on the Sabbath, and there was a man there who was in need of healing. And the Pharisees were watching closely to see what would Jesus do on the Sabbath? Would he heal the man, which supposedly in their tradition would break the Sabbath because it's working? Well, what did Jesus do? Of course, he healed the man. Why? Because that's what the Sabbath is for. The Sabbath is there for healing. That's why God gave the Sabbath. God gave the Sabbath as a day of rest, yes. But what does rest bring? Rest brings healing. Rest brings healing and new life. And so, of course, Jesus heals on the Sabbath. Because that's why God gave the Sabbath, to bring healing. So, what do we receive on the Sabbath? Well, it kind of depends. Some people on the Sabbath receive perhaps a few extra pennies in their bank account because they choose to spend the day at work. Perhaps others choose to not add exhaustion to their week by still working, but they choose to sleep in. Perhaps they receive a bit of rest on the Sabbath by spending it sleeping in bed. But do they receive healing? No. The purpose of the Sabbath is for healing. And so, for those of you here today, what do you receive on the Sabbath? You're not working. You receive rest. And you receive God's healing. That is what God establishes this day for you to come into his house, to hear his word, to be healed, and in fact, more than be healed, to be given new life. We see this pattern in Jesus himself. Think about Jesus' experience during Holy Week specifically. The first days of the week, Jesus does his work. He is teaching the people. He is working with the people. Think about Good Friday. What does Jesus do on Good Friday? He finishes his work. In fact, what is one of the last things that Jesus says? It's regarding all of his work of salvation. Jesus says on Friday, it is finished. The time for work is finished. Jesus' entire work of salvation was finished. And on Saturday, even Jesus himself, God, rested. He rested in the tomb. But then came Sunday. And Sunday came healing and new life as Jesus rose again from the dead. So we also have the promise that as we are together with God in his house on Sunday, we also will receive healing and new life as Jesus is risen and lives again. So he brings that new life to you also in his house. So if we're joined with Jesus, we are joined with the same opportunities and the same promises as what Jesus received and experienced. Now, if we're separated from Jesus, if we're spending our Sabbath day at work, if we're spending our Sabbath day sleeping in, separated from Jesus, those promises, those experiences do not become ours. There's no healing, there's no new life, and our week is off to a bad start. But with Jesus in worship, we receive these benefits. We receive rest. We receive healing. we receive new life. We receive exactly what the Sabbath is there for. So we are in this house on the Lord's day, and Jesus is among us, and we are weak and weary and sick and beaten down and in need of God's grace. And we watch Jesus carefully, and we wonder, what will he do? Will he bring us healing? Of course he will bring us healing. That's what the Sabbath is for. It's a day of rest and healing. As we sang in our opening hymn for today, hymn 906. O day of rest and gladness, O day of joy and light, O balm of care and sadness. A balm is a healing medicine. O balm of care and sadness, most beautiful, most bright. Stanza 4, the light our hope sustaining, we walk the pilgrim way. At last our rest attaining, our endless Sabbath day. We are given healing and life here on Sunday morning, which strengthens us as we are fed through the Word and sacraments to go forth and walk our pilgrim way. But we know that a greater Sabbath rest is coming, when we will rest from all our labors, rest from all our worries, be healed of all of our diseases. And this Sabbath day points us also to that Sabbath day. At length our rest attaining, our endless Sabbath day. We sing to thee our praises, O Father, Spirit, Son. The church her voice upraises to thee, blessed three in one. In Jesus' name, amen. The peace of God, which passes all human understanding, keep your hearts and minds in true faith through Christ Jesus our Lord. Amen.